When Mega Evolution was first introduced in 2013, director Junichi Masuda described it as a way to bring average Pokémon closer to legendary Pokémon. In 2014, they released Mega Camerupt, proving that to be a complete and utter lie. But which Pokémon have actually benefited the most from their Mega Evolutions? Pokémon that were downright unusable that became something legendary. So good morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR, and these are the Pokémon that were saved by their Mega Evolutions. Also, I'm saving the spoiler megas from ZA till the very end, so if you're not a maniac who beat the game in 3 days like me, don't worry, you can watch most of this video without fear of spoilers. So starting with one of the very first Mega Pokémon ever revealed, we have Mawile. In that initial trailer, I remember Mawile sticking out like a sore thumb next to the other powerful Pokémon there like Mewtwo, Blaziken, Absol, and Ampharos. Mawile had pretty much been laughed out of the room ever since its introduction in Generation 3 due to its absolutely abysmal stat balancing. 85 in attack and defense, but just like the weather right now, sub 60 in everything else. I just realized that dudes from the UK probably heard that and went, "Oh, it's always under 60 degrees, what is this stupid American talking about?" This basically doomed Mawile to a decade of being an untouchable Pokemon. There was not a strategy in the books that was going to pull this guy out of the crapper. But Mega Mawile might just have been the craziest upgrade in the history of upgrades. Despite still sporting one of the lowest base stat totals among all Mega Evolutions with a measly 480, with the huge power ability, Mega Mawile hits harder than a Red Bull on Monday morning. Okay, but literally, after just one Sword Stance, this thing has more than 1,000 attack. With that, it can easily 2-hit KO virtually even the bulkiest Pokemon with Sucker Punch. Yeah, though one weakness holding Mawile back was its speed, but with access to a move like that, even that hardly matters. Pretty much the only reliable counter to a Mega Mawile is Will-O-Wisp, and you pretty much had to run a Pokemon with it back in the day due to how common Mega Mawile was. And because of how reliant Mawile is on its ability to be good, they actually had to increase its base stats far above the usual 100 additional points in Legend ZA. That's right, Mawile actually got 42 more attack added in ZA in place of its ability. So it's kinda like the only one who got to keep its ability. Regardless, Mawile is unfortunately nothing without its Mega, and this one was certainly hurting the most from the removal in Gen 8. Up next is Kangaskhan, a Pokemon who is actually fairly decent in the first few generations of competitive play, until power creep finally caught up with it around Gen 5. But Mega Kangaskhan flipped the script fast. Like Mawile, this one once again comes down to its ability more than anything else. Sure, Mega Kangaskhan has decent stats, but it still wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary without its signature ability, Parental Bond. Parental Bond is a unique ability that turns all attacks into multi-hit attacks, with the second hit from the baby doing roughly half of the mother's damage. This lets you stack status effects, break focus sashes and sturdy, and all kinds of other shenanigans. It just so happened that this ability was introduced at the same time as another infamous move, Power-Up Punch, which Kangaskhan used to great effect. Because Parental Bond applies the attack boost twice, meaning Kangaskhan could basically Swords Dance while taking out a chunk of your HP at the same time, all but ensuring the next attack would be lethal. In VGC, this also meant that Kangaskhan could do massive amounts of damage with Fake Out, an incredibly powerful move in the doubles format, as I'm sure most of you are already aware of. Oh, and like Mawile, it also packs Sucker Punch, just in case of faster Pokemon. With tools like that, it's no wonder why it was quickly banned to the Ubers tier in singles. Definitely one of the most game-changing megas across the board. With those first two demonstrating just how potent a good ability can be, let's transition to Delphox, whose ability we don't even know yet. But we do have its data mine stats. Don't tell Daddy Nintendo. Regular Delphox's biggest undoing was always its hidden ability. While Greninja and Chestnut were blessed with Protean and Bulletproof respectively, Delphox was stuck with Magician, an awful ability that steals the held item of your foe after attacking them. But if Delphox is already holding an item, the ability does nothing. You can immediately see how fundamentally flawed this ability is in a competitive context, where you pretty much always have to hold an item. And even if Delphox isn't holding an item, if your opponent switches at the right time, they could use Magician against it by forcing Delphox to steal something useless like a Toxic Orb or a Choice Band. But since Mega Delphox has to hold a Mega Stone, it's beyond reasonable to assume that its ability has to change. Unless, God forbid, it just keeps Blaze. That would just be outright evidence that Game Freak hates Delphox. And honestly, Mega Delphox doesn't need to have anything crazy like Psychic Surge or Magic Bounce. Although, that would be super sick. It could be something relatively mundane like Levitate and it would still be a huge improvement. Mega Delphox already has one of the most significant stat upgrades of any of the new Megas that I've seen, boasting 159 special attack and 134 speed. All it really needs now is some decent coverage and a usable ability. This thing will be absolutely terrifying in Pokemon Champions, using Expanding Force next to Psychic Surge and DD, regardless of what its final ability will be. The only major thing that sucks about it is that it exists at the same time as Mega Greninja, who will certainly be its biggest op. Regardless, we can already see that Mega Delphox is going to be a huge upgrade. And your Pokemon knowledge will get a huge upgrade if you subscribe to this channel. If you're enjoying the video, I'd really appreciate it if you did. Back to the classics though, very seldom was Pinsir ever considered a good Pokemon on its own. While its high 125 attack makes it an extremely hard hitter, being a pure bug type with poorly distributed stats everywhere else left a ton to be desired. But luckily for Pinsir, since its beetle brother Heracross got an upgrade, it was able to hitch a ride too. Unlike Mega Heracross though, Mega Pinsir goes in one of the most unexpected directions ever, sprouting wings and primarily becoming a flying type attacker with its new ability Aerolate, which it only shares with Mega Salamence. Aerolate was honestly a pretty genius ability for this thing, because other than the relatively weak Aerial Ace, this thing understandably doesn't learn any flying type moves naturally. But now it can turn 2 average attacks, Quick Attack and Return, into huge damage dealing moves, and allows it to take out numerous fighting type threats which it commonly struggled with due to its narrow move pool. Another example of a Mega whose gameplay was radically changed by just one ability. Add close combat to its arsenal and it can KO almost anything. Mega Pinsir is certainly not without its many checks though. As there are still numerous faster Pokemon than it in the metagame, it struggles even more against Stealth Rocks now, and being burned or paralyzed takes this guy completely out of contention. But despite all those drawbacks, this has to be one of the biggest examples of Game Freak swinging for the fences to make a previously forgettable Pokemon extremely powerful. On the note of bug types, we have to mention our first Mega from Hoenn, Beedrill. A Pokemon that isn't actually from Hoenn, you know what I mean. Remember that line I just said about swinging for the fences? Well, they aimed for the parking lot outside the stadium with Mega Beedrill. Transforming an early game bug type that was meant to only be good for the first few hours of the game into a high tier sweeper was going to require a lot. And boy did they pull out all the stops to make it happen here. Mega Beedrill absolutely guts Beedrill's already low special attack of 45, lowering it to a comically small base 15, just so we can get even more added into attack and speed. That's right, no defense, no special defense, no tires, just gas! Making Mega Beedrill the ultimate glass cannon, not named Pheromosa. They even gave it adaptability just to make those bug and poison moves hit even harder. It might be one of the only Pokemon that could actually run Fell Stinger back when it was only a measly base 30 power in Gen 6. Thanks to its gargantuan attack stat, it could reliably KO low HP opponents to get a massive attack boost in the process. Honestly, Beedrill might be one of my favorite Megas purely for how massive this upgrade is. This might be the only Mega that comes close to rivaling Mega Mawile for how large of an upgrade it got. But that didn't stop others from trying, including Mawile's counterpart, Sableye, an incredibly lackluster Pokemon that struggled to make its mark on the meta even when it used to have no weaknesses. Similar to Beedrill, Mega Sableye does cheat a little bit in the stat department, as it loses 30 speed so it can get even more points to add into its other stats. Which I don't think people minded because Sableye certainly needed all the help it could get. While Sableye appeared to finally find a niche in Gen 5 as a fast supporter with a Prankster ability giving it priority to Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, and Recover, Mega Sableye instead functions as a slow support Pokemon, using the same tricks its base form did, but with much higher defenses and an incredible ability in Magic Bounce to reflect all status moves. What's so charming about this Mega though is that it actually has great synergy with its base form. It can play mind games against its opponents by not Mega Evolving when it's expected to and abuse a priority Will-O-Wisp instead, punishing greedy players who want to set up right in front of it. This form even had to be banned to Ubers for a short time because of the way its ability warped the entire metagame. With Magic Bounce, it almost became like the anti-meta Pokemon, and became the centerpiece of Gen 6 stall teams that usually abuse bulky Pokemon like Blissey, Quagsire, or Clefable. Because the moment you tried to poison them or lay hazards down, Sableye threatened to bounce it back. It was the quintessential say no to offense Pokemon back then. Because of this, Sableye was banned not due to its raw strength, but rather how incredibly centralizing and uncompetitive it was. A pretty wacky accomplishment for a Pokemon whose base form only has a stat total of 380. That's worse than a Watchog! Up next is our first spoiler mega from ZA, so I'll give you some time to escape if you haven't finished the game yet. And I'll quickly remind everybody that there's a healthy dose of speculation here because we don't know any of these guys' abilities yet. But our first contestant is Meganium. Okay, yeah, you could reasonably assume that one existed. Big shocker. I've seen everybody clown this thing for not getting anything more than a couple more flowers and a double weakness to poison, but bear in mind, poison is hardly ever used as an offensive type in competitive play. Usually steel is almost always preferred when it comes to fighting against fairy types. So I don't think this drawback is as big as some people are making it out to be. This thing has a ton of bulk and access to lots of good health draining moves, which will definitely make it one of those obnoxious tanky megas. And of course, being a fairy type always comes with the added bonus of shutting down those pesky dragon type sweepers. I think ultimately whether this mega is just good or broken though will come down to the ability. If it gets something like Comfey's Triage, which boosts the priority of healing moves, we should just back it up because this will easily be one of the greatest mega upgrades ever. But it already kinda has that title just because base Meganium is so bad. It's worth noting that Mega Meganium is already considered one of the better PvP mons in ZA due to its immunity to Dragon and its instant plus Solar Beam. It's surprisingly strong in this format. Up next, we definitely have one of the most left field megas in ZA, and honestly, not one of the Gen 6 ones that I would have expected, Barbaracle. But yeah, this thing has the potential to be a competitive demon in Gen 10. Base Barbaracle already has one of the best abilities in the entire game with Tough Claws, which doubles the power of moves that make contact, so it won't even need a new ability to be really good. Mega Barbaracle also got a type upgrade going from Rock Water to Rock Fighting. Yes, this does give Barbaracle more weaknesses overall, but it does erase its crucial double weakness to Grass and its weakness to Electric, which is important given how many competitive Pokemon run Thunderbolt. It's also significantly more bulky and faster than OG Barbaracle, and it learns Shell Smash! Shell Smash is already an incredibly scary move on most Pokemon, only really balanced by the fact that it usually goes to very slow Pokemon with a lot of weaknesses, making the opportunity to Shell Smash pretty scarce. And this ultimately is the problem that holds regular Barbaracle back. Its low speed and prevalent weaknesses means that it has to Shell Smash to be good, and those opportunities don't come very often. Mega Barbaracle has so much bulk and a decent enough speed stat that it can pull it off way more safely. Honestly, they may have to change its ability just to keep it relatively balanced. For now, let's just thank Arceus that this thing doesn't have Aqua Jet. Yet. And lastly, my personal favorite Mega Evolution from ZA, Phalanx. Did anybody see that coming? Phalanx has always been kind of a gimmick Pokemon. No Retreat is somewhere between a really great and really bad signature move, and depending on the context it's used in, you'll either sweep or be swept. But with Mega Phalanx's boosted defense and speed, No Retreat suddenly becomes a lot more scary to deal with. It's by no means an instant win button, as it's still very frail on the special side, and if Fluttermane so much as looks at it funny, the whole mech will just fall apart. I don't anticipate this to be a mega in the same tier as Mawile, Sableye, or honestly any of the other megas that we've discussed so far in this video. Again, ability pending, but I do see this as a massive upgrade that could pull some cheesy late game sweeps, and that makes me very happy. Of course, there's a ton of other Mega Evolutions from ZA that got very big buffs like Scrafty and Starmie, but I would consider their base forms to still be pretty usable. They're not nearly as bad as some of these other Pokemon that I mentioned in this video, so don't think that I'm glossing over them, it's just that they were kinda good to begin with. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you guys next time.